Household Services for Grade 7 and 8, Week 3. Our topic is Ratio and Proportion, Substitution of Chemical Solutions, and Computation of Work Schedules or Housekeeping Bill. Ratio and Proportion. Ratio is the quantitative relation between two amounts showing the number of times one value contains or is contained within the other. In housekeeping, it would vary based on the type of hotel and the size of the rooms. Ratio. Notation. Ratio of two values, A and B, is written as A is to B or A/B or A to B. For instance, the ratio of the number of boys in a class to the number of girls is 2:3. Here, 2 and 3 are not taken as the exact count of the students, but a multiple of them, which means the number of boys can be 2, 4, or 6, and the number of girls is 3, 6, or 9. It also means that in every 5 students, there are 2 boys and 3 girls. Ratio. Notation. Ratio of two values, A and B, is written as A is to B or A/B or A to B. For instance, the ratio of the number of boys in a class to the number of girls is 2:3. Here, 2 and 3 are not taken as the exact count of the students, but a multiple of them, which means the number of boys can be 2, 4, or 6, and the number of girls is 3, 6, or 9. It also means that in every 5 students, there are 2 boys and 3 girls. Here is an example of ratio. Question number 1. In a certain hotel, there are 28 guest women and 21 guest men. What is the ratio of guest men to guest women? What is the ratio of guest women to the total number of guests in the hotel? Solution. Guest men is to guest women. It is equal to 21:28, which is divisible by 7, or 3:4. Women, total number of guests, is equal to 28:49, which is also divisible by 7. It will become 4:7. Question number 2. In a group, the ratio of doctors to lawyers is 5:4. If the total number of people in the group is 72, what is the number of lawyers in the group? Solution. Let the numbers of doctors be 5x and the number of lawyers be 4x. Then, 5x, the number of doctors, plus 4x, the number of lawyers, is equal to 72. X is equal to 8. So, the number of lawyers in the group is 4 times 8 is equal to 32. Proportion. Proportion is defined as the comparison of two ratios. For example, if A is to B is equal to C is to D, then A, B, C, D are said to be in proportion and written as A is to B, C is to D, or A/B is equal to C/D. A and D are called extremes, and B and C are called means. For a proportion, A is to B is equal to C is to D, products of means is equal to products of extremes. B times C is equal to A times D. Let us look another example. Here's another example of proportion. Another example of proportion. Substitution of chemical solutions. What is substitution? Substitution means replacing hazardous chemicals with safer alternatives. It is the top of the hierarchy of control measures applied to substance. Several factors must be assessed to determine if a chemical is suitable substitute, including potential hazards, exposure, technical feasibility, and economic considerations. After substitutes are proposed, the risks of each substitute are compared to one another and tested until a suitable substitution is found. Thus, the potential hazards of a chemical or a substitute candidate must be assessed by noting the toxicity of the chemical to both humans and environment. Likewise, the cost and practicality of the substitute are also considered because successful substitution may require technical and organizational changes. The result of substitution may be not completely harmless but should be reduced hazard. Thus, substituting hazardous chemicals follow the principles of green chemistry and result in a clean technology. Why do we need to substitute? The aim of substitution is to phase out hazardous substances or replace them with less hazardous alternatives for safe handling during manufacture, use, and waste management or recycling. Who can substitute? Companies that manufacture articles, materials, or chemicals are responsible for substituting any hazardous substances in their products. Business that handles articles, materials, and chemicals also have the same responsibility. Retailers can also go further than the law requires and strive to eliminate more hazardous substances from their articles or product. This can be achieved by requiring suppliers to substitute hazardous substances with safer alternatives. What needs to be substituted? Substitute all hazardous substances as a preventive measure in order to reduce the risk of adverse effect on human health and the environment. How to substitute? There are two ways on substituting chemical solutions. First, substitution can be illustrated as a staircase consisting of 5 steps, where each steps build on the previous one. The 5 steps in substitution process. Number 1, gather information on chemical use. Number 2, identify unwanted substances. Number 3, find available alternative substances or new technical solutions. Number 4, evaluate and select alternative substances or technical solutions. And number 5, develop new alternative chemicals or technical solutions. Substituting way number 2. The following steps are general and indicative and can be adjusted if appropriate to bring about the desired result. First, organizing working group. Ensure appropriate representation of workers and employers and integrate all required expertise. Include those directly involved in using or producing the substances, like technicians and workers. Make a work plan with well-defined roles for all stages. The measure to ensure an efficient information flow between the group, the rest of the company, and its stakeholders. Maintain a collaborative, open-minded atmosphere. Number 2, defining the problem. List the substances to be substituted. Be clear on why you make these choices. Prioritize substituting according to legal provisions, company policy, and stakeholders' perspective. Define the function that a substance has and how it is integrated in the rest of the process or product. List the required condition for this function to perform adequately, like the temperature, acidity, pressure, chemical, and compatibility. An alternative should fit these conditions, or the system or product will need to be changed to a greater or lesser degree. Define what the quality substance gives to the process or to the final product. If the quality is not actually necessarily needed, for example, some commercial attributes, the substance may be eliminated. Otherwise, an alternative is needed. Number 3, setting substitution criteria. Set criteria for selecting possible alternatives. Initially, fewer pre-screening criteria may be used. This would eliminate at an early stage those alternatives that are not safe enough CMRs and the substances of equivalent concern, such as endocrine disruptors, also synthesizers, or neurotoxicants, should not be chosen as alternatives. Other criteria may be added to differentiate between alternatives that have passed the screening criteria. Cost, availability on the local market, and other advantages may be considered. Number 4, searching for alternative. Solutions may be found inside the company. Searching other sources is also important. Alternatives already developed and implemented may lower innovation cost and risk. Internet sources, official reports, supplier chain, professional or sectorial associations, or authority representative may provide useful information. Another approach is to ask the supplier to formulate a safer alternative. Some 20 companies offer support in selecting the right product or may be willing to reformulate the initial one, especially for important clients. Number 5, assessing and comparing alternatives. Assess all alternatives using the same method or tool to allow for comparison. Select those alternatives that best fit the nature and the dimension of the problem and that provide indeed an overall risk reduction. Number 6, experimenting on pilot scale. Try substitution in a smaller scale to see if it lives up to the expectation in terms of safety, technical, environmental performance. Compare costs against those initial forecasts and estimate if feasible when transposed at full scale. Number 7, implementing, re-evaluating. Plan carefully for full-scale implementation. Evaluate and take appropriate measures. Review as necessary the supply chain, training needs, and other procedures. Following are the ways of substituting. Number 1, using different and safer substances instead of the initial one. Example, glycerol acetate as an alternative to phthalate plasticizers in coatings. Number 2, using technological alternative instead of the initial substance. Example, deep freezing instead of formaldehyde for preserving biological samples. Number 3, using an organizational measure as replacement for hazardous substances. Example, replacing mercury switches into some X-ray machine with manual adjustment by operator. Number 4, changing the product so that the substance is no longer needed for substitution or redesign. A known sample is eliminating adhesives by redesigning product shapes so they can be assembled manually or by click. Number 5, as well as being a legal requirement, substitution can also be done voluntarily. Many companies have lists of substances that are banned or restricted in their products or activities. Some of these substances are not yet restricted by law. In substitution of chemical solution, regardless of its type, substitution should really make a positive difference for health and safety. Shifting hazards, for example, chemical to physical, or using inappropriate control measures for alternative may lead to situation in which the overall risk is higher than before substitution. Confusing the lack of data on a certain hazards with the absence of those hazards could also make substitution ineffective. While substitution examples may be transferable, there would be a need to assess them on a case-to-case basis, taking the specific conditions of the workplace, company, and work procedures into account, as well as the conditions arising during maintenance and in the case of foreseeable accidents. There cannot be a generic approach to substitution. Examples of substitution. Substitution can be on different levels, such as using 1. Less hazardous chemicals in the same process. Example, for construction paints, from organic solvents to water-based paints. 2. New design of the process. Examples, in metal degreasing, from vapor degreasing with trichloroethylene to high-pressure hosing with hot alkaline solution in a closed system. B. In bracing, from fluxes containing boron and fluor compounds to use of a furnace which reducing atmosphere. Number 3, by new process. Example, removal of old paint from a mixture of dichloromethane and methanol to blasting with steel sand in a closed system. B. From bonding with adhesives to a new design of items locking them mechanically together or mutually. Number 4, by avoiding the use of the process. Examples, avoiding electroplating with nickel only applied for cosmetic reasons. For furniture of wood, from lacquer with organic solvents to no surface treatment, especially used for furniture of quality. And number 5, avoid producing products involving hazardous processes. Computation of work schedule. Computation of work schedule. Employee scheduling will depend greatly on the occupancy of the hotel. The number of occupants varies depending on the season. The executive housekeeper is the one who decides on this matter. The standard practice in assigning rooms to housekeeper is 16 rooms per room attendant. The productivity standard in cleaning an occupied room takes about 30 minutes, then 6 minutes in cleaning the bathroom, 4 minutes in loading carts and tea breaks. A hotel room with 100 rooms, all are occupied, needs 8 room attendants per shift. There is also software that can be used to aid complexity of the tasks, such as visual rota. Assignment or distribution of tasks should be fair and equal. No employee must be overburdened with tasks. Rotation of tasks is also considered to avoid monotony. Common task for all employees is to provide service for the guest. The executive housekeeper should make sure that the rotation of employees on different floors is observed, and each floor should have equal employee to work on the entire task. Here is an example of room attendant work schedule. In this table, it refers to a work schedule that is performed in rotations. This is a type of work schedule in which group of workers rotate through set periods throughout the day. It can involve evening or night shift, early morning shifts, and rotating shifts. Many industries rely heavily on shift work, and millions of people work in jobs that requires shift schedules. Why is it important? Time decreases loss of keys or key cards, increases productivity, and encourages consistency and organization. Types of work shifts. First shift usually takes place between the hours of 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. and nearly always in line with traditional business hours, which is 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. Working first shifts means you get a reasonably standard work day, complete with the morning and evening commute and evenings off, so you can have dinner with your family or friends. Second shift is the work between 5 p.m. and 1 a.m. and also known as swing shift. It usually extends from 4 p.m. Third shift typically takes place between the hours of 12 a.m. and 8 a.m. and also known as the night shift or graveyard shift. This is the work schedule that takes place from around midnight to the early hours of the morning. Through the exact third shift, jobs may change from one place to another. This shift almost always happens at night. What should you remember on beginning or first shift and on the end or third shift? At the first or beginning of the shift, you should sign in using the punch clock or filing in the timesheet or by using the biometric. Sign out the required keys or key cards. Pick up the room assignment sheet and check for special assignments and requests. Pick up necessary supplies to clean room. At the third or end of the shift, you should return the assignment sheets after having logged any maintenance that has not been attended to and any discrepancies. Return unused supplies, restock card for next shift, sign in the keys or key cards, sign in lost and found items, sign out by using the punch clock or filing in the timesheet, and check the schedule before leaving for changes and assignments. All employees in the organization play an integral role in housekeeping. That is why it is very important to establish a housekeeping work shift or schedule. At a minimum, housekeeping is required to be done at the end of each shift. At this time, employees are expected to inspect, clean, and remove unused or discarded materials. This table shows an example of employees' work shift. A time to remember. This is Maylene Huliganga. Thank you for watching.